back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm Tyler from the Unemployed Architects. So this week, I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. Since we had our Colorado tour this last week, I'm going to be adding a lot of video and interviews and stuff. So I'm deeming it what I call a pod doc. So it's like a podcast documentary of our trip. So I'm going to use this to kind of narrate, and there's going to be some in real-time interview and just kind of little things like that just kind of thrown in here and there. So gonna try not to make it too long, but it was a giant trip, and we played 5 shows, 6 if you count the one that we played when we got back. So a lot of stuff to talk about, and every part of it was pretty crazy. So the first show was in Lincoln, Nebraska, and this year we weren't as stressed about getting ready. I got off a little bit late from work the night before, like 7:30, something like that, and then just had to come home and really pound out the packing, I guess. But probably got that all done around 11 or midnight, and then Lo and I were, I guess, just two in our head about the trip because we both couldn't sleep very good. I think the max amount of time either one of us got was about 3 hours, and then we had to get up, go get the rental car, be on the road. We wanted to be on the road by 10. I had to pack the car just right. They ended up and gave us a van, which was pretty cool. Had a lot of extra room. Didn't have to focus every time I packed the car, because usually with the SUV it's a little bit tougher to get it. It's like a Tetris, as opposed to, I could see out my back window almost the whole trip, which is, pretty unfamiliar for this type of thing. But yeah, needless to say, we were both definitely very tired and worn out, and that's before show even number one. So we arrived in Lincoln, Nebraska, probably around 5. We left a little early, and we stopped at the Airbnb, which was a pretty decent place, little house that they let us rent out, and dropped a few things off and kind of got, freshened up for the show. Got up to Gray's Cake Saloon in Lincoln about, I want to say, we played at 8, so we probably got there around 6:15. Wasn't a busy night by any means, but this bar is one that's always supported us for our little tour out, and they're just always super nice and, consistent, and so we like working with them a lot. Sound guy is always very nice too, so he was pretty into what we were doing. I think he's probably just into whatever he's doing. I don't think he necessarily especially liked us, but he just likes doing sound and being the guy, and he made it sound pretty good. And the show itself was kind of, we had to win them over a little bit. There wasn't, like I said, a ton of people there, but by halfway through the first set, I feel like the people that were there were definitely taking notice of what was going on, and we sounded pretty good. As I mentioned, Lo was pretty tired, so she was kind of out of it for this show a little bit. We did our 3-hour set, got some burritos, and went back to the Airbnb, and that was night number 1. So that was an 8-hour drive, or 7.5. And then on this morning, we were driving to Boulder, which is about the same, about 7.5 hour drive. And Dave drove separate. He came. It was me, Lo, and Dave. But he kind of drove by as lonesome. He had some people that were supposed to come with him that ended up and kind of bailed last minute. But he said he was kind of looking forward to the time and just experience it a different way. I think the first 2 days were definitely the toughest, just because they were such long drives, and then you have to perform. So we got to Boulder, I'm not even really sure what time. It was still light out for sure. We played at 8. I think we probably got there at 5:30, and we had to be there at 5:30 to kind of set up and everything. Another not crazy busy night, but we did have some Pontiac support, which was very cool. And we had Samantha Warren, Eric Warren, and Donnie Sartoris, and he brought a friend. And I was kind of feeling like we were going to be kind of the low drawl of the two, but we ended up and I think we at least matched, if not did even better than the other group, the Whispering Willows. I mean, it was a Friday night show, and it was before all all the students came back in Boulder, which I might have overlooked a little bit as far as like, maybe I should have booked the tour a week later, because I feel like it would have been a lot busy just naturally. But it was just a hard one. It was but because those 3 people came out that we knew, and there were a couple other just hanging around anyway. It was fun, and it was fun to talk to all those guys. I hadn't seen them in a long time, so we played. I think we performed probably 6 out of 10 performance-wise. I feel like halfway through we started, and it's weird just doing an hour. We felt like we were just getting warmed up by the end of it. Not a lot of money was made because that was more of we split the door with the other band, and we didn't get really a ton of tips or anything. So sound guy there was nice. He was in a band as well, and it was his first day, and I feel like it sounded pretty good. We didn't do the foot drums for this show as we did in Lincoln, Nebraska. That was that night, and then we went and hung out with Donnie and Ross Graves at their place, or I think it's Donnie's, not Ross's, after, and I got my fill of Donnie and Ross songs because I hadn't heard them play in a long time. We couldn't really work out a show that they could do with us, so we ended up and went over to his place, and I got them to put on a little show for us, which was pretty cool. They probably played like 10 songs, and they had a buddy, the name is blanking on me, he played, and he sounded great. It was a really good time. And then we had to drive to our Airbnb after that. That was a little bit on the rough side. It was definitely, driving to Denver was, because that's where Donnie lives, a little bit rough just because it's a big city. And about a 45-minute drive from where we were at. So we ended up and made it there kind of later than we had planned. And then we had to drive to Idaho Springs, which was another 45-minute drive. And we hung out there for probably too long. So, we were there till maybe 2 in the morning or something. At least midnight, I would say. Sometime between midnight and 2. And we drove. Dave ended up and stayed in Denver that night. And we went to the Airbnb in Idaho Springs. And it was real hard to find. It said it was a tiny house, but it ended up it was a trailer and trailer court, which was fine. It just was hard to find because of it was kind of mislabeled, I guess. And of course it was like way too late to us to get a hold of the host, and we ended up and probably took an extra 45 minutes to find the place. So we didn't get to bed like at all early enough. And so then we woke up the next day. We had to be out by like 10, and my phone clock hadn't changed yet, so I ended up and we left an hour before we needed to, so we got about 2 hours of sleep that night. And then we went up to this place. It was called Fraser, and that's where we were staying the next night. It was kind of halfway between where we were in Idaho Springs and where we were going to play, which was Grand Lake. So we went to Fraser, just kind of checked out the town, see where our Airbnb was, so we wouldn't be as confused the next night. And it still took us a while in the daylight to kind of find it, but we didn't have really much to do, so it was fine. And we ate at a little diner there in town, and that was kind of probably the coolest place we ate. We didn't have a ton of extra money to have very fancy dinners or anything like that. So, but we did get a good breakfast there, and I felt like we both kind of needed it. Me and Lo did. And the drive there to that place was pretty crazy looking. Should be video to show you on that, but it was during the day, so it wasn't nearly as bad. But Fraser was really in the mountains for sure. And then to get we contacted the host of the Airbnb, and they ended up and let us check in like way early, which was awesome. So we got to go and shower and take a little nap, and which we really needed. And eventually Dave kind of met us there. He got a nap in too. He probably stayed up a little later than us even the night before. So then, we were all ready for the show in Grand Lake, and we drove, and it was, it was only like a 45-minute drive, but it started to storm really bad. It was like lightning. There was a lot of lightning going on, and we were really high up, in the mountains. So we were like, is this show even going to happen? And we weren't really sure what was going to happen when we got there. Maybe they were just going to be like, hey, we shouldn't have the show. It's rainy. And the drive was rough. It was windy and rainy and in the mountains and dark, even though it was, daytime. We got there just fine. I went in and talked to the lady that had booked us, and it was pretty packed. And there was something event going on in town where the town was just really, really busy, and there was like a line of cars like kind of going through it. But the place itself, besides it being a little colder than I think they were used to because of the weather, it was still real busy, and there were still people outside, even though they had like coats on and stuff. It definitely felt like a brisk autumn day for sure. And we weren't sure whether the rain was going to come back, because the rain in the mountains up there, it just changes on the drop of a dime, like so easily. So you just never really know what to expect, and it looked like it could really go at any minute, but it definitely warmed up a lot. That was a show that the altitude really got to me and Lo for sure, because I feel like it was way higher than we were used to being. And you were seeing snow caps on a lot of these mountains that we were driving through, which on most of the other places I wasn't seeing. So, but just judging by that, I think it was pretty high in the mountains. And the first set we played, we had a bunch of technical difficulties. Like, we got everything up and moving, and it was sounding okay besides breathing up there. And I was doing the foot drums, and I was definitely out of breath and trying to take it a little easier than I would normally. And we were all running on fumes sleep-wise. But it was an earlier show. It was 5 to 8, so, it wasn't crazy late. And the people there just seemed so appreciative that we came up there to play, and they really were into it, even though we weren't necessarily feeling it for that first hour, trying to get our bearings a little bit for playing up that high. By halfway through, they were paying attention already, but then halfway through that second set, they were dialed in, and there wasn't going to be any more rain. It was nice that it was a cool wind blowing, because it really cooled me down. I didn't feel like I overheated at all, which I usually feel like I do when I do the foot drums. And we just started to kind of come together and kind of all wake up. It was a 3-hour set, and the crowd was super responsive, and we ended up playing even later, even later than we had planned. I think we probably got done closer to 9 o'clock because they were having it, and it just felt really good to finally that was the show that kind of woke us up, I feel like, as far as getting over those drives. Those drives are so hard to drive for that long in a day and then be ready to perform on that little amount of sleep. It was a different mentality for sure, but we finally were all feeling it. We didn't have to drive crazy far, I think, that day, and that probably helped a lot, but we were all on fumes sleep-wise. So after that, we got tons of tips that night and got a lot of CDs out and a lot of compliments, and we were feeling good. Took us a little while. We were done by a little bit before 9 probably, but we didn't probably get out of there till 10:30 with the teardown. And they fed us, which was cool. They gave us some free burgers. So we went back to the Airbnb in Fraser, and that was at nighttime, which I felt definitely more confident driving than in the rain, but it's just a different experience. It's total focus you have to have when you're driving in those mountains. And it was just way higher than I think we'd probably ever been. Had to take it very slow on the way home, but once we got there, we were in bed by maybe 11:30 or 12, and we didn't really have to be out of the Airbnb till 10 the next day. But we wanted to get up and go to because they had a rec center with a hot tub, so we got up pretty early the next day. I think we got good sleep that night, which we definitely all needed, a lot. Definitely recharged our batteries quite a bit. And we got up early, and we went to it was 48 degrees, so we were really going to the pool. We were going to the hot tub, which, had a cool mountain view. We kind of got to relax there. Really, we only got about a half hour in before we had to go and get all our stuff out and ready to go. After that, we were playing in Fort Collins, and it was another crazy mountain drive. It was only about 40 minutes in the car, which was nice, but And I feel like that day, since it wasn't raining and it was sunny out and I could actually enjoy the drive a little bit. And we'd already done it once, so it wasn't like all brand new. I really enjoyed that drive, even though, we were still tired, but you kind of just have to get used to it. If you don't have somebody driving for you, you just have to be all alert, I guess. So we got to Fort Collins, and so that was Odell Brewing Company in Fort Collins. The place we played at Saturday night was called Squeaky Bees in Grand Lake, which that town kind of looked like a Christmas town. It was just like set up for Christmas already, even though it's August. But then, so Fort Collins, they paid us with a check. We were trying to cash the check at a couple different places, but since it was a handwritten payroll check, we weren't able to. So we were a little bit short on funds. We ended up and just went to Odell Brewing Company a little bit early. I got some strings changed. We got some equipment set up pretty early, and it was a good show. I mean, it wasn't crazy packed, but it was pretty busy. I think it was a little bit less busy than last year. We definitely had a lot less friends come out this time, because I feel like a lot of them ended up and moved to a different state or moved back to Illinois. It's always fun to have people that are like live out there kind of guide you. They know where to go and what to do. And so this time I felt like we definitely were a little bit more winging it ourselves. That show, I feel like probably sounded the best out of all of them. Lots of good tips, lots of CDs out, and overall just kind of a good show. I think we played really well. We were definitely more dialed in, and since it maybe was a little bit lower on the altitude, we weren't all like dying. When we were done with that show, like 7:15, out of there by 8:45, which just seemed super early. And then we went to the Airbnb, which again this one was a little bit tough to find, but it was a nice little spot, kind of in the country of Fort Collins, and we got there around 9:30, 10, somewhere in there, and it was a nice place. It was probably the nicest place we had stayed at, and the host was super nice, so it was a good little spot, and we didn't have to be out till 11 the next day. Dave took off the next morning because the Tuesday show wasn't a lot of money, and they were asking for kind of a more laid-back type show. Monday was just kind of a free day. Me and Lo went up to the beach in Fort Collins, and then we ended up, the Airbnb we stayed at that night was like way more up in the mountains than we thought it would be. We thought, we were playing this place called Evergreen on Tuesday, so I booked, I think it was called Kittredge was the place where we stayed, and it was like a lot of the driveways and stuff were just like on a greater than a 45-degree incline. Some of them were gravel. It just felt so weird. I was just thinking, since it was kind of a burb of Denver, we would be kind of out of the woods on the crazy drives, but I was definitely wrong. This was a definite nicer Airbnb than some of the other ones we stayed at. It was like a bunch of little apartments. It wasn't big by any means, but it was nice, very private and clean and all that stuff. It felt weird to be so high up in the mountains. We got out of there pretty early in the next morning because we were just, I was just ready to get on the road. We made it to Evergreen, which we came there pretty early. We probably got there around 11 or noon after, I think we did up and got some gas station burritos that turned out to be really, really good, because there was only one real place to eat in that small town of Kittredge. So the burrito alternative turned out to be pretty good, and we just kind of sat in the mountains and ate our burritos, and then we went on to our next show in Evergreen. We had a lot of time to kill, so we kind of just visited the town a little bit, walked around. Definitely a tiny mountain town, and just kind of walked to see where we were going to be playing later, which the bar itself turned out to be cooler than I had imagined in my head. There wasn't a lot of people in the town, probably, total. I can't imagine the population being very big. But so we went in, we checked it out. We had already eaten, so we decided that we would go up to Evergreen and the Lake Evergreen and walk around. So we walked around that, and that was pretty. So that was cool, probably a few miles around, and just kind of took it all in, I guess. Then we went back to the car. We still had some time to kill. The show was at 6, and it was probably like 1. So 1 or 2 by the time we were done walking Evergreen Lake. Oh, they had a trail that went all the way around, so it was super cool. But we sat in the car for a while, and then we decided, well, let's go up in the mountains at least and set up there instead of just sitting in a random parking lot. So we drove kind of way up into the mountains again, and from afar we had seen some what we thought were elk, but it could have been horses, could have been deer, we weren't really sure. And so we ended up, and we're up there for a bit. We climbed up some rocks and stuff, and just kind of sat up there and hung out. And then we drove all the way down to see if we could catch the elk before they moved. And they were like right off of Evergreen Lake, and they were just in a huge herd. They were being super lazy. All like land. There's a golf course right next to Evergreen Lake, and that's where they never letting people get super close. So we got pretty close to them and took some pictures and stuff. And we wanted to see some elk. We saw some goats earlier too in the mountains as well. Some mountain goats. That was the first time we'd ever seen an elk in real life, so that was cool. And after that we ended up and went to the venue, kind of got set up, and it was more of a rock club, I feel like, but had a nice stage, had bras that outlined the top of the stage, which was crazy. But the saloon, it looked like an old-fashioned saloon, like something you'd see out of a Western. And but nice stage. We did our own sound for that one, and we got there plenty early to make all that happen. We did a 1 mic setup, didn't do the foot percussion because it wasn't like a big paying gig or anything like that, and it was early, and they'd said that they'd wanted it more laid back, so we got everything set up relatively quick. I used some of their speakers, but most of the stuff was ours, and we did 1 mic. A couple good friends of ours came from, one of them Denver, the other one's Georgetown, and they came, and this show started pretty slow, like it was like nobody there, and then right before we started there was like 2 groups of people that came in that were there for pretty much the full first hour, and it was super nice, super complimentary, and got them CDs and stickers and all that. And then right when they were leaving, our friends had come, so and there were people in and out throughout the rest of the night, but it was just nice that they had come, because it just felt like we brought these people, and they're there to hang out, and we're pretty much putting on a show for them, which was fun, and kind of letting them call out what they wanted to hear. And then we got some other people that randomly came in and out throughout the night, and they were super nice and gave us lots of good compliments, and it was a fun show. I mean, it wasn't the packed show like the Saturday night show in Grand Lake, and it wasn't like as small as I thought it would be, like our Laughing Goat show on Friday at Boulder. But so then from there, CJ, our buddy, one of the people who came, was like, we should just go to Evergreen Lake, because we had never seen it really before, and it would be cool just to go over there and just kind of hang out for a little while. So we ended up had to go this crazy long out of the way route because some of the roads had been closed. But we got there and we pulled in, and I had noticed a sign earlier that day that said an hour after sundown the park's not opened. So I was like, well, there's going to be somebody who comes up and probably tells us to leave, but I didn't expect what actually happened. So we went out there and we walked on the lake for like maybe less than a minute, and a cop comes pulling up from the golf course that I mentioned earlier, tells us to follow him. So we followed him back to the parking lot where we were at, and 2 other cops were already there. One of them had riot gear, which was pretty crazy, and they asked us a few questions. We gave them our license, and pretty much they were way nicer than I would have imagined them being. Because, I figured we weren't supposed. I figured, like I said, worst case scenario, security guard would come up and tell us, hey, you can't be here. You guys got to get out of here. And we would just leave. But we didn't expect 3 cops, and one of them being riot gear. But they were pretty much like, oh, you're from out of town. And CJ kind of sweet-talked him a little bit and was like, they just wanted to see the lake before they took off. And pretty much we came to the conclusion from what they said that they were thinking that we were just, some teenagers kind of smoking at the park, and they just wanted to kind of scare them, which they succeeded. We were definitely a little scared because it happened so quick, and all of a sudden there was 3 cops on us. But they pretty much after that were just like, yeah, you guys are good to just kind of walk around and hang out, just clean up after yourselves. And that's what we did. So we hung out there for probably a good hour, just kind of catching up with our buddies and just looking around and walking around. And we ended up and went back to our Airbnb after that. CJ had given us kind of a different way to go, which wasn't so mountainous, which was definitely a relief because I thought I was going to have to drive some crazy routes. But ended up, and it was an RV we stayed in that night. That was really nice, and we didn't have to check out the next day till noon, which was cool. We got out of there pretty quick, and we got an okay night's sleep, which was good. And then we went to Red Rocks because we were finishing our little tour with a show that we were going to see at Red Rocks, Nathaniel Ratliff and the Night Sweats, and that turned into a pretty crazy experience, but not quite there yet. We went there early in the day because you can just kind of walk around the park. So we walked around and just kind of saw some cool stuff and got close to the stage, and they were kind of doing sound check, and we'd never been there during the day really and had time to just kind of hang out. So we did that, and then we left. We got some ponchos because rain was in the forecast, which we were glad we did, and we got back to the show, kind of just parked. We hiked a little bit just because we had time to kill in Red Rocks. They have a couple of trails you could go on. Somebody told us that was coming the opposite direction and told us they saw a rattlesnake, so that kind of ended our hike a little bit more abrupt than we probably would have. And then got back, got ready for the show. I parked kind of far away, which might have been a mistake, I don't know, but I figured it'd be easier to get out later. We started walking towards the show, clouds started rolling in. We went in like a weird way that we haven't gone in the past, where it was like we had to climb a bunch of stairs and come in more from the side angle. Well, I ended up at the bottom of Red Rocks, but we got up to the top of this little area and there was a line forming, so we were like, all right, we'll just get in line here. And the clouds really started rolling. We kind of made friends with a couple in front of us and a couple behind because we were just standing there. And the couple in front of us, one of the guys was from the area, so he seemed like he knew what was up weather-wise and how to handle everything. But it started raining, kind of got a little crazy, and most people left, and there were people yelling like, go back to your cars, go back to your cars. And we were just listening to the guy in front of us like, don't really worry about any of this. The weather will change on the drop of a dime. So we got, a lot further ahead in line to the point where we were like under this little awning they had. But we ended up, the show got postponed like 2 hours later than the doors were supposed to open. And we're just sitting in a group all wet and just kind of trying to pass the time. So eventually they did let us in, and we were kind of worn out, but it was still a good time. The opener seemed like they got their time cut a little bit, which was, we didn't really get a good impression of them. I mean, they seemed okay, but it seemed very rushed, and like their sound check wasn't done all the way or something because you couldn't hear the vocals very good. So it wasn't an amazing performance by them, but I mean, I cut them a lot of slack because that would be kind of a tough situation from the performing aspect. And they knew that, everybody had been waiting there to see Nathaniel Ratliff. He kind of, I feel like, shortened the set quite a bit. And we were up in the nosebleeds at the beginning, and it was very windy and cold, and of course we didn't bring any clothes that were appropriate really for the weather. So we ended up and snuck down a little bit, sat in a spot that definitely wasn't ours, but it was still people were still kind of filtering in for the opening spot. Once the opener was done, we walked up and just kind of stood along one of the sides, and we got really close, and it was a great performance on Nathaniel Ratliff and the Night Sweats part. I mean, they sounded great, maybe better live than on the CD, but lots of good stuff. And then on the way back to find our car, of course we went out the wrong way, and our car was literally on the exact, like we walked down this road for a long time, and we thought we were going the right way, and we were on the exact opposite side of where we parked. So we had to probably an extra 20 minutes of walking, hiking, we'll call it, at the end of that show to get to our car. Once we got to our car, went to get some food. Stopped at a gas station. I was feeling like a little out of it, so I was like, oh, I'll just sleep for a little bit. So we ended up and pulled over at the gas station, slept for like 3 hours-ish, and then hit the road in the morning. Still a little dark when we left, so it was like 4:45 a.m. when we left, and just drove for 14 hours, but it seems like 15 because you lose an hour. And that was just pretty much white-knuckled it all the way home. Laurelyn drove for a couple hours once I had already been driving for, I think it was like 11 hours. She took over for a couple, and then I was back at it. I got like a 20-minute nap in while she was driving, and I feel like that kind of replenished me quite a bit. So we drove from like 4:45 a.m. to 9 p.m. and we came back with not a whole lot of money, that is for sure. I mean, we broke even or made a little bit extra, but I mean, we had saved a lot of money to go out there, and we probably spent a little bit more than we should have. So that was a little bit rough. The drive was a little bit rough. Luckily, we got the deposit back on the car, so that saved us a little bit. And then we also had a show booked at Kemp's the Saturday after. That show was just me, Lo, and Dave. No foot percussion. Me and Lo did the one mic thing. Dave just played acoustically. A lot of Pontiac representation in the crowd. And it's a small beer garden, but the show seemed pretty full, and I think it was good. So that is the story of our adventure out to Colorado. So as always, thanks for listening. Have a good rest of your week.